Voila, look, the hook has cut the thread. Hi everyone! Welcome to episode 49 of the So Not Scary series.
In today's episode, we are going to look at the mini sewing machine bobbin problems or mini sewing machine repairs. Now before we begin, let me just throw it out there that I have no idea which way this is going to go. This little mini sewing machine that you see on your left, if you don't know this already, is something that I bought just a few weeks ago for the sole purpose of opening it up to figure out how the internal mechanism works, because so many amongst you who've been watching my videos and have been so kind to comment and post questions, so many of you have said that you're facing problems with the mini sewing machines, and I figured the only way to properly figure out what's wrong with it is to kind of open it up. Now that is my original mini sewing machine that I've always had since I think October of 2019. I did not want to open it up because it was pricier than this one, okay, and it feels a little more robust than this one. So I said I'm gonna keep that, I'm not gonna touch that. So I bought a second much cheaper mini sewing machine off of eBay, and today we're gonna open it up and see how it looks on the inside, how it functions, and hopefully we're gonna try and figure out what to do if it stops to work. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so here we are looking at the mini sewing machine from the top, and the first step we need to do is to get rid of any extras which might be attached to the mini sewing machine. So there is no foot pedal or power cord, as you can see, but can you see here we've got a thread bobbin attached as the upper thread, so we've got to get rid of that first. So I'm gonna just kind of, the spring flew away. When I pop it out, this spring kind of comes out, it sits there, okay, and that's how it's positioned. We've got rid of the top thread. Now let's get rid of the bottom thread. So I'm going to turn the hand wheel towards myself so that this needle comes out. The needle's out. Now I can kind of slide open the bobbin casing and get rid of this bobbin as well, okay, and I can slide this back. Now our mini sewing machine is devoid of any extras. We can move on to the next step. So if I flip it over onto its belly or onto its front, you can see there are some screws on the back. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I can see 6 screws, and we have to unscrew all of them. Okay, so I've got a little ramekin here to catch the screws, and I've got a 4-pronged screwdriver, as you guys can see, okay, and we're going to attempt to unscrew all of these 6 screws we just saw. Here we go. Okay, so I've tried to unscrew all of the 6 screws. I must admit though that this little guy in the corner there has been giving me a bit of a problem. I don't know if it's turned properly or not, but we're now going to try and get these screws out. So it helps if your screwdriver has got a magnetic tip, which they usually do, so they can grab the screws as you pull them out. There you go. Look at the bottom. If I flip it upside down, there's a little battery compartment there. We've got to get rid of this first as well because it's spanning both the parts. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of pop it out, and this little sticker as well. Okay, so that sticker is out as well. Okay, so the 5th screw managed to fall out easily enough. Now we're just left with this corner screw, and I'm gonna hope it comes out once we open the machine up. I'm also going to get rid of one more thing. It's this little plate there because it's spanning both the sections. So we get rid of this little plate, okay? Make sure our presser foot is up and the needle's up in the air as well, okay, at the highest position. Okay, so I flipped the mini sewing machine back onto its front. Okay, I've got 5 screws in there. There were 6 in total, but the 6th one has refused to come out. So we'll see how we can manage to get that one out in a minute. Okay, now let's just try to open it up.
Wow, that was easier than I thought, because big sewing machines are just stuck together so firmly. So it's lifting up and to lift off the lever like that.
And that's the front coming off. Whoa, that's the inside. And now, before we get scared of all the inner workings, I just want to point out that last 6th screw is this little nubbin right there, okay? And the reason why it was not coming out is really, it's just got a tiny little tip poking out. I don't know how well it's holding the front, if at all. It really isn't serving much purpose being this size. Okay, so it's not bothering us. We're going to leave it where it is. Okay, so we're just going to deal with 5 screws in total, which we have loosened up. Okay, now let's move on to the next step. Okay, so before we just start getting alarmed by all the inner mess that we're looking at right now, let's just break it down and take in what we're looking at without judgment. Okay, let's not judge the inner mechanisms as being too complicated or too scary. Let's just look at what we're seeing and come to terms with what we are looking at. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed is, and I'm going to point it out with a little bamboo skewer, is that they have greased the different bits of this mini sewing machine using some kind of a semi-solid lubricant to lubricate all the gears and moving parts of the machine. Okay, so you will notice that all these plastic gears, even though they're plastic, they have a sheen to them, and that's because they have been lubricated with this, whatever it is, feels or looks like paraffin. I don't want to touch it with my bare fingers because they're just going to end up looking greasy, but there you have it. Okay, so that's supposed to be there. Don't get rid of it. Don't just take out a cloth and start cleaning it up because it's supposed to be there. Okay, so that's the first observation. I know that the most important question most of you have asked me is, the lower thread is not coming up and the machine is just not engaging and sewing. And that's what we're going to focus on for now, okay? So to do that, I have to kind of lift the machine up like so you can see exactly what's going on. This little black thing is our bobbin casing, or the thingy in which our bobbin actually sits, okay? And in most machines, it's easily removable so that we can clean the machine out. Now, because this is such a cheap little crude mini sewing machine, they've kind of semi-fixed it in place using this little screw. So if we want to get rid of this and get it out of the way, we've got to unscrew this and move on. So let's try doing that. It's very easy to turn, and it's tiny compared to the other screws that we just removed. Okay, so I'm just going to add it to the same little ramekin so that I remember where everything is. Okay, so the first thing we need to do in order to remove the base plate is to lower the feed dogs. The feed dogs are these little corrugated silver things which move the fabric forward. Okay, so I have to kind of turn the wheel so that they're at the lowest position. Okay, but what that also does is it engages the needle, so we are going to deal with that in a minute. What it did is it kind of got my little base plate free. Now I can raise the needle again. There we go, it's come off. And in case you're wondering what the base plate looks like, this is what it looks like. That's the top, that's what it looks like on the side, and that's the back of it. Okay, and when we refix it, this is how we're going to do it. So we'll deal with that in a minute. Now what I'm going to do is attempt to remove this. Okay, that lifted off very easily. All you have to do is, once you unscrew this, just give this a gentle lift. Okay, and it's kind of semi-flexible plastic, and this bobbin housing should come off very easily. And that's what it looks like, in case we're not familiar, which we aren't. So that's what it looks like. Okay, and we're gonna put that to one side for now. Okay, so now we are inside the mini sewing machine. These purple surrounds that you can see here are yoga blocks, which are propping my machine up on its side and at an angle so you guys can clearly see what's going on. I want you to ignore this paper clip because the sole purpose of this clip is to provide you with this purple background against which you can see what's going on inside this bobbin casing, okay? Because the machine is really white on the inside, sometimes it's really hard for you to see exactly what's going on. So I've just used this clip to clip on this little piece of purple cardstock so we can clearly see in high contrast what's going on with our machine when it's working or not working. So right now my sewing machine, as you know, works perfectly. And this is a great opportunity for us to see what the position of our needle, which is right here, what the needle looks like compared to our bobbin, whatever this round thingy bob is called. Let's call bobbin housing, okay? So we want to keep two things in check. The position of the needle compared to the position of the bobbin housing, and within the housing specifically one particular part which is called the hook. Now if you can see this in high contrast, you will be able to see that right there I'm pointing towards a plastic white kind of like a triangular shape which has a little point to this end, okay? And this is called the hook, okay? This hook is what is supposed to be timed perfectly to the position of our needle as it's going up and down so that it can kind of combine the two threads together to make a perfect stitch. Now when you have a mini sewing machine or any sewing machine for that matter which refuses to stitch properly or which skips stitches, most often what happens is that the timing or the coordination of the needle and this little hook have gone out of sync. So when you guys take it over to a sewing machine repairs person or a specialist, what they do is then they reset the position of these two things, the needle and the hook, compared to each other so that the skips start to stitch perfectly. Now my sewing machine works perfectly, so this time I want you to take a really good close look at the perfect position. And that position is actually when the needle is on its way up, okay? So when we turn the hand wheel, the needle goes up and down, up and down. When it goes down, there comes a point when it reaches its lowest position. And then within a split second, it starts to move up, okay? That is the crucial point when your hook is supposed to be just kissing the needle, okay? And that's the correct position. Only in that position will your machine work perfectly. In all other positions, the machine is not going to work perfectly. It's going to skip stitches, okay? So let me demonstrate this to you. So remember, we've got a perfectly good, perfectly working sewing machine, and I'm going to turn the hand wheel towards the front, which is the correct way, and we're going to move the needle up and down. So you can see I'm turning the hand wheel and the needle's gone up. Here comes the hook, but this time we're going to ignore the hook. It's only when the needle is coming down. Now the needle's coming down, okay? We're still ignoring the hook, not looking at the hook at all. Now look what happens to the needle. I hope you guys can see this. Now when I turn the hand wheel further, reaching the lowest point, now it's starting to move up, okay? It's starting to move up, and when it just leaves the floor of that bobbin housing and starts to move up, that is when the hook comes to kiss the machine. Right there, okay? Can you see? This is the perfect position for the hook compared to the needle, okay? And if this position is out of sync, your machine is not going to stitch, okay? So today we are going to try and replicate this position. We are going to deliberately get these things out of sync and then reset them, okay? And I hope you can now see the exact positioning. Your machine has to be propped up onto its side ideally so you can see exactly what's going on, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So now I'm going to change the view or position of our mini sewing machine, and we're going to move on to the next step. Okay, so now I've propped up the mini sewing machine onto its back again, and you're looking at the front bottom part of the mini sewing machine, and I've deliberately covered these bits with some bits of tissue so that we are not confused about all the other mechanical noise or visual noise that's in the mini sewing machine. I could have zoomed into this area only to let you see what's going on, but I kind of wanted you to get an idea of the scale that we're working with, okay? So behind all this purple paper is our mini sewing machine, okay? But we are only looking at this area, okay? So just like we just saw, the hook of the bobbin housing is this. So I'm going to turn the hand wheel towards myself and watch these gears move. See how those little round gears, these wheelie things are moving, and as they move, they're also turning this bobbin housing, and the hook is moving round and round. Okay. Now we're going to pretend that we want to reset the positioning of this. We're going to pretend that my machine is out of sync and I want to reset it. How do we do that? What we need to do is disengage the bobbin housing from this gear mechanism, okay? So the gears themselves are working perfectly, but if your machine is out of sync, what that means is that the bobbin housing has gone out of sync with the gears, and therefore it is unable to get back in sync with the needle, okay? So we need to disengage this guy from this lot. How do we do that? Well, underneath it you can see there are some screws, okay? And these are the screws which are controlling the movement of the bobbin housing, as we just saw. So what we need to do is disengage the bobbin housing from these screws. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've got my screwdriver again, and what I'm attempting to do now is unscrew the first screw, which sits directly underneath the bobbin housing. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I have unscrewed this screw quite a bit so that you can kind of see its neck behind the screw head. What we now need to do is disengage this gear from the bobbin housing's shaft, okay? So I'm going to try and slide down this gear down away from the shaft. So holding this guy in place, I'm going to just slide it down. There. You can hear an audible pop. And if I can shift my camera ever so slightly, now from this position you'll be able to see that I have slid down this gear, down this shaft. That was the shaft on which the gear was sitting. And now if I turn the hand wheel towards myself, this should not move. Do you see? We have disengaged the bobbin mechanism from the rest of the gears, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna completely unscrew this screw, okay? I've got it out now, and this gear is free. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we are back in our initial setup. So I want you to ignore this paper clip and this purple card. It's only there so you can clearly see what's going on. So now our bobbin housing, which is this white guy, this white bowl thing, it's free from the mechanism, and we want to set it up perfectly. What do? The first thing we need to do is lower the needle down to its lowest point. So I'm going to turn the hand wheel towards myself. Remember, the needle is moving, but the bobbin housing isn't. Okay, so now the needle's going down. It's reached its lowest point, and it's going to start moving up again. There. Now that has started moving up, I want to bring the hook of the bobbin housing to kiss the needle. Let's do that. There, I think we're kissing. Yeah, I think we're kissing. And now in this position, I want to re-engage my bobbin by tightening up the screws that connect the gear mechanism to the bobbin housing. Let's do that. So I've just double checked the position of the bobbin housing by looking at it from the side, and it's still kissing the needle exactly the way we wanted it to. So now all we have to do is slide this bobbin back onto the shaft and screw it up using this little screw. Let me just quickly show you what this gear looks like, okay? As you can see, it's got an angled hole or a vertical hole so that it can slide onto the shaft at a certain angle only, okay? One side of it has an indentation and the other side doesn't. And you can see it's quite shiny because there's a lot of grease on there to help it move smoothly, okay? And now we're going to attempt to slide it back onto the shaft while keeping the bobbin housing where it is, okay? Here we go. So I'm holding the bobbin casing firmly and I'm sliding this in. At the angle that I wanted it to go. And it has slid on and engaged very easily, okay? Even I'm surprised how easy that was. Let's tighten the screw. One thing you want to make sure is you don't want to make this screw too crazy tight because then it's going to make the movement a little bit difficult. So just a gentle tightening and the bobbin housing should turn perfectly. And now let me see if the position of the needle and the housing are matching up. Now before we put the whole machine back together again, it's always a good idea to double check whether the positioning of the bobbin casing that we've just set up, is it actually working or not? Will our mini sewing machine now sew after we fiddle around with it? So the best way to do that is to just thread the machine, but not the whole machine. All we need to do is thread the top hole which sits right above the needle and the needle itself. So let's do that. Okay, so as you can see, I have threaded the needle with this purple string, okay? And now we're going to pretend that we're sewing. So we're going to turn the hand wheel and lower the thread down into the bobbin casing. And in the ideal scenario, this hook should catch the thread, okay? Here we go. So I'm going to hold on to one end of the thread. There goes the needle, it's going down, making a loop. And voila, look, the hook has caught the thread. That's exactly what we needed, okay? So if you've positioned your bobbin casing in the correct place, you should get this result. And now we can put the whole mini sewing machine back together again. Now before we attempt to replace the bobbin casing, which is this black thing, you need to first figure out how to put it back properly. So let me quickly show you, okay? And I just discovered this while working with the mini sewing machine. When you are looking at your casing from the top, because the underside is kind of like this little inverted bowl, you're looking at it from the top and you will see that there are two different types of grooves here. One is this big smooth groove, okay? And one is this really weird L-shaped, kind of a crooked triangle groove right next to the smooth groove. And we have to kind of keep this crooked L-shaped groove in mind. Here's why. Do you now see the bobbin housing? In the housing you will see this little plastic protrusion, okay? This protrusion is supposed to sit over the top of this wonky L-shaped groove, okay? The one that I just showed you, okay? So this will sit on top of this, okay? And also, when you are inserting it, notice the position of my bobbin housing, okay? The hook, which is this little guy right here, okay, is pointing towards me when I'm looking at the machine from the front, okay? So say for example it wasn't pointing towards me, say for example this is where it was, okay? This is what I'm gonna do. Turn the hand wheel towards yourself until the hook turns around to point towards you. There, okay? Now we have to kind of hold on to our bobbin casing so that the wonky groove, which I just showed you, which is this L-shaped wonky groove, it's making an L, okay? Position it so that it'll settle underneath here. Now gently lift this ever so slightly and kind of squeeze it in. And it should just settle right in, okay? No problems, okay? So what are our 3 checkpoints? Number 1, the wonky L-shaped groove. It's supposed to be in line with number 2, this white protrusion. And number 3, the hook of the underlying bobbin casing should be pointing towards yourselves, okay? Once you have those 3 checkpoints in place, your bobbin casing should slide right in and sit properly. Let's screw this little baby up now. Okay, so the bobbin casing is in, I've tightened the screw, I've just inserted the base plate. Now I'm going to install the front of the machine. Okay, everything has lined up nicely, so I'm going to flip it over and tighten all of the 5 screws. Okay, so as you can see, I've put back my generic mini sewing machine again. All the screws are in place. I've now threaded it as well. So now the only thing that remains to be seen is whether it's going to stitch okay or not. So let's go ahead and try it. I'm going to attempt to sew a straight stitch down this bit of fabric. Wow, look at that. Perfect stitches. See? I do have to adjust the tension a wee little bit, I think, because I can see a bit too much of the purple at the back. But hey, it's sewed. It's sewed perfectly, beautifully. I have no complaints. So I think one of the things that I was really nervous about today was which way this video is going to go, because to be honest, I have never attempted to do what I did today on camera before, and it worked. So I hope you realize that if somebody like myself, who is also a beginner, can do it, you guys can easily do this too. And remember, there's only one little screw inside the machine that you need to fiddle around with to fix the timing on your mini sewing machine. It's really super easy, okay? I hope you found today's video helpful. If you have any more questions, please fire away, write them down below, and I'm gonna try and do my best to get back to each and every one of you. In the meanwhile, you guys go ahead, open up your mini sewing machines. Don't be afraid to do it, okay? It's not scary. Just open it up, fiddle around with it, get to know it better, and fix the timing and get sewing. Let me know how you guys get on. If you like this video, please do like, share, and subscribe, and I shall see you guys very soon. Bye!